Hello, welcome back to my theater. Today we're going to be going over a project. What I'm talking about today is the bass shakers. I have one bass shaker in each of these seats, so 6 bass shakers total mounted to the back of each of these seats. Bass shakers are a tactile experience. They are kind of like a speaker that doesn't have a cone. They're still driven by a voice coil, and when they're activated, they produce vibrations, and since they are mounted to the chairs, those vibrations get transferred into the chair itself. Bass shakers are designed to be felt and not really heard like a traditional speaker is. So that's kind of the principle of how they work. They add a low frequency effect that you feel and experience, and there's a lot of different ways you can achieve that, bass shakers being one of them. There's all kinds of stuff out there, from hover easy setups where you actually have your seats on like a platform with some subwoofers underneath. Lots of different ways. You can Google and look at all these different types of methods to get this tactile experience. I didn't want to go with the platform at this point. I always had initial plans to start with the bass shakers and see what happens. If you've seen my other videos, you know that I already ran 3 separate runs right down the middle here of this back wall of speaker cable, because the bass shakers that I went with are the Aurasound, and they are 4 ohms per shaker. So when you wire them together in a pair, you get an 8 ohm load back at the receiver. And I planned on finding a used, like a 5.1 channel receiver to power all 6 of these shakers on, and I did. I found one off of the Facebook Marketplace. I think it was like 50 bucks. It was an Onkyo unit we'll take a look at here in a little bit, and it worked really good. Each pair is on its own channel back at the receiver. So far it's working really good. I just got them all installed and tested them out. We'll go over the results here in a little bit. I'll show you kind of how I installed mine and some different options and methods that you can do if you're looking at something like this for your own setup. I'm very happy with the way they feel. Since you don't really hear them, you can't really say that you're happy with the way they sound. They do add quite a bit of an experience. Even with my near field subs, since I've moved these 2 PB1000 Pros right behind here, obviously I was getting a pretty good tactile experience just by having those subwoofers in the back row here, which was awesome. I had already purchased the bass shakers. They were always in the plan, so I wasn't going to not install them. I wanted to see how they work and what type of experience they add. And they do, it's worth it. The seat definitely shakes even when the bass is not as aggressive. It's pretty cool. The other advantage and reason why I decided to do this from the get-go and made sure that I pre-wired for it and everything was, if I'm watching a TV show or even a movie, I suppose, after the kids are in bed, probably gonna turn all the subwoofers off. But since these bass shakers aren't going to travel throughout the whole house, I'd be able to leave those on and still experience some of the low frequency effects on whatever type of program that I'm watching and still get some of that experience. It's not going to be obviously as good as actual subwoofers, but better than nothing for sure. Let's get in and check out my install and how I went through all this and hooked everything up from the rack to the wall and how they're wired to get that 8 ohm load, and we'll go from there. So let's jump right in. I ordered these Aurasound Bass Shakers from Parts Express. At the time, the more shakers you ordered, the cheaper each shaker was in overall price. I'll leave a link to them in the description below. You'll see that 4 shakers come in one box. I have already installed the other 2 shakers, so they are not shown in the video at this point. They're pretty basic, as you can see. You mount them at the outer 4 mounting holes, and there are 2 speaker terminal connections, 1 positive and 1 negative, just like any normal speaker. As I mentioned earlier, they are 4 ohms each and have a maximum load of 50 watts per shaker. They feel solid when you're holding them in your hand. They do have some weight to them. They don't feel cheap or like they could break easily. I don't have any other brand to compare them to, as these are my first bass shakers I've had. To start this install, I needed to find a spot to mount the shakers securely to my seats. There are various ways people have figured out how to mount shakers to their furniture. It seems like a lot of times you have to add a platform, usually made of wood, to the chair first, and then attach the bass shaker to the wood so that there is enough surface area for mounting purposes and for the shakers to work properly to transfer the vibrations into the seat. Upon inspecting my seats, I found a location across the lower back of the chair that was part of the solid wood frame. I centered them and attached them securely using 4 screws per shaker. This is the wiring diagram I followed from the12volt.com. It shows how to wire 2 4-ohm single voice coil speakers in series to achieve an 8-ohm load. After wiring them in series as per the diagram, I happen to have 3 leftover banana plugs which I installed on the opposite end of the speaker wire, which will plug directly into the speaker terminal block on the rear wall. This will be super convenient when I need to pull the seats out for cleaning purposes, as they can simply be unplugged from this connection point. Here is the wired install of both shakers. You can see the wood frame they are mounted to and how it continues to run throughout the seat. I tried to wiggle them after installation and they are solid. This should provide a good transfer of the vibrations that they will produce into the chair's frame. I also figured this is the perfect time to secure each chair to each other. The seats have holes for mounting them together, but I never did that when I initially set them up. It was nice to be able to pull one chair out at a time for access or for cleanup purposes, but now that they are wired together, it made sense to secure them. I used 3 bolts with locking washers for each of the 3 love seats. I followed the exact same procedure for the last love seat section. I had a little bit of leftover wire loom that I used for the right and left love seat sections. This little section of wire can be seen from the room when walking by the chairs, so it dressed it up a little better than just having bare speaker wire on the floor. I might order a little bit more in the future for the center chair, even though you can't see it at all unless you pull the chair out. And this is how it looks when it's all done. You can see how the wire loom looks from the main part of the room when walking by the seats. And if you look behind the seats, you can see the shakers and how they look when the seats are in their normal listening positions. The wiring at the AV rack was relatively simple as well. I purchased this RCA Y cable so I could use the single RCA subwoofer 2 output on my Denon AVR and then have a left and right RCA channels to plug into one of the inputs on the Onkyo receiver, as you can see here. I initially attached the 3 speaker cable runs to the left, right, and center channels of this receiver. I figured out that the center channel wasn't getting the same output as the left and right connections, so I moved the center speaker connection to the left connection of speakers B, and that solved the issue, so all 3 channels were getting the same output across the board. Here's a quick at the front of this Onkyo receiver, and just for reference, it is model HTR410 and is rated at 100 watts per channel at 8 ohms. Now that the wiring is all done, the last step is to program this receiver into my Harmony Elite remote system, which I made sure was compatible before I purchased this receiver. you can see that my Harmony hub is at the very top of my AV rack and this Onkyo receiver is at the very bottom. After the programming was completed, I can go to the Devices tab in my Harmony Elite remote, scroll down to the Onkyo receiver, and power it on or off and control the volume, which should be the extent of what I need to control the bass shakers on the fly without leaving my seat. So that was the install. Pretty basic, straightforward, using an old 5.1 receiver to power all 6 of these. Haven't had a whole lot of time to really dial in. There's still a lot of different settings that I can play around with. For example, I can change the trim level of that Subwoofer 2 output in the Denon if I want to elevate the signal coming from it to get more output into the shakers here, or I can potentially just mess with some of the settings in the Onkyo that I really haven't done yet either, like there's bass and treble and some of the different settings that come with the Onkyo receiver as well. I'm very happy with the way that they work. Absolutely, they work. The tactile experience is really cool. Very happy with the decision to go this route at this point. I know there's better options out there. To be honest with you, no need to go any further. You can feel it. I'm going to show you a demo here to kind of close this video out. I initially threw on the original Jurassic Park scene, of course, where the water is vibrating with the footprints, and you can see the water moving and even the cup moving around inside of the cup holder. I switched movies to the opening scene of Den of Thieves, and that is a Blu-ray disc, as it's not offered in a 4K UHD disc at this point. It is in the DTS HD master audio format. The gunshots were really cool, and that cup was moving all over the place. And I didn't even have the volume way up on the bass shakers, and they were very noticeable. One of the things I forgot to mention was having independent volume control from that receiver for the bass shakers. I can fine-tune whatever movie or whatever I'm watching by switching over to that Onkyo receiver on my Harmony remote and literally turning the volume up or down. So it's a very easy adjustment. More tactile feedback or less. Don't have to get up or change anything. I can literally do it from the remote right here. So wrap this video up. Here's the demos. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. Got some more stuff coming up because we haven't done a full walkthrough for a long time. So stay tuned. We'll see you on the next one. Here's the demos.
Maybe it's the power trying to come back on. Let's go!